Shalom. Welcome. Today we are continuing with our ancient Triennial Torah portions. This is the old cycle that predates the current yearly reading. Today's parsha is called Vayar Adonai. Then Adonai saw. This Torah portion can be found in the book of Genesis, chapter 29, verse 31, through chapter 30, verse 21. Adonai Adonenu ken yiratzon, ta'azerna otanu Abba, lilmod tov be'einecha bayom hazeh. Ken yiratzon ki tishlachna et refuot shelemot mishamai mima'al, al kol talmidai ve'al lai. Anachnu ohavim otcha Adonai kol levavenu, ve'im lo ta'azerna otanu, la'lechet tamim lefanecha. Lolano velach yihye kol hakavod. All right, so let's get to it. Here we have Jacob and his 4 wives in cartoonish fashion. Let's show. So what we've got on the right is the Leningrad Codex. That's a very ancient 1,000-year-old handwritten document. And on the left is some text I put up there trying to make it easier for you guys to follow along. The color coding, I don't have space on the screen for the legend today, but are one of my normal Hebrew students studying with me Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and also on Shabbats, of course. And then you guys should be familiar with the color coding scheme. So I may call them out as we go through, just for anybody who might be new. But on this page, for example, a lime green, like kind of glowing green, that is a vav conversive. It changes the aspect of the verb. So whereas yireh would usually mean he will see or he is seeing, it makes it into he saw. When you have blue, that's just telling you it's an affix on a verb describing the person of the verb. So in this case, the yod at the beginning is he. Yod at the beginning is he, right? Okay. Tav at the beginning. Oh, that one's grayed out, so we won't deal with that right now. And then the darker green is just a conjunction. Red marks definiteness, and yellow is a suffix. Gray is a proper noun, so a name. Right? There are other colors. Maybe I'll call them out as we get to them. So we're going to read today. I'm not sure if I'm going to read from both in the interest of time. I'm not sure. Let's kind of feel it out. For this first verse, we will. So verse 31. Let's zoom in a bit. There we go. Vayar Adonai kishenu tzenua leah ve'yiftach et rachma Rachel la'akara. All right. The verb here is yara. It's actually kind of hard to tell, but it's actually missing the hey at the end. It's a lamed hey verb. They tend to do that. So there would be a hey at the end usually. By the way, I hope you guys appreciated the vocabulary sheets I handed out over on Patreon this week. I made 3 vocab sheets for this week's study. One, assuming you didn't hear the words, or you need to refresh all the words that occur more than 100 times in today's parsha, and less than 500, excluding prepositions and the article and such. The second one I made was assuming that you remembered all of the lists, not all of them that I made, but all of them from Genesis chapter 20 to here. So like the last 10 chapters or so, 11 chapters. And then the third one I made was assuming you remembered all of the, as low as all the words that occur 70 times or more in today's parsha, right? Because there are some readers' Bibles that expect you to 70. All right, so Vayar Adonai, meaning he noticed. Vayar Adonai, ki senua, that hated was Leah. Vayiftach, so he opened et, we don't translate, that's red because it's the definite direct object marker, rachmah, her rechem, her womb, which is very interesting, especially in today's evil times of abortion in many countries. The root of rechem is where we get rachamim from, mercy or mercies. So it's like the place of mercy for the mother's womb. And look how evil the enemy is, and look how evil this age is, that in the West they have perverted this to make the place of mercy into a place of pain and death. So may it become illegal in Israel and in Europe and in the United States and all of the countries where it's currently legal. May this current genocide be stamped out speedily and soon. Leah, that Leah was hated. This is a passive participle, by the way. So he opened up her womb. Because, or for, Rachel was barren. Nachmanides comments, the Lord saw that Leah was unloved, literally hated, having deceived both her sister and Jacob. She had to obey her father. She would have let Jacob know, or she should have let Jacob know, what was going on, rather than pretending to be Rachel night long. That is why Jacob hated her. But the Holy One knew that she had done it in order to be married to this righteous man. Midrash Breshit Rabbah, Genesis Rabbah, explains that Jacob intended to divorce her, but the Holy One blessed her with children. This is just tradition, okay? Not the blessed with children part, but that he intended to divorce her. We don't know this. It's a tradition, leading Jacob to think, how could I divorce their mother? That is what the Lord saw means. The Lord took pity on her and made sure Jacob would not leave her. Others say that hated simply means she was the less loved of the two. In verse 30, he loved Rachel more than Leah, but he did not hate her. Nonetheless, she was ashamed, and the Holy One saw her affliction. Yeah, so I would now that second description there, I'm just going to mark that kind of a darkish blue color. This others say hate simply means she was loved less of the two. Oops, I underlined too far. So what's my argument? Word sana, sin nun hey, it does usually mean hate. That verb means hate. Sana, right? And many words in biblical Hebrew are deeply nuanced, and their meaning changes depending on other words of the same category around them. But I want to make sure you get it. For example, the word mitzvah is commandment. And if it's by itself, it means any kind of commandment, right? But when you pull it down into context with other command words, like, for example, the word that we often, statute, right? You guys know statute? What statute? Chukah, right? Or a chok. It appears both ways. That is a command which we are not given the reason for. We can surmise why, but God doesn't tell us the benefit of keeping it for us other than obedience, right? For example, like shatnez, not wearing shatnez. And if you have the word mitzvah in the midst of that word, then mitzvah is a commandment that we do know the reason for it, rather our benefit. The example I always love to use is kibed et avicha v'et imecha. Honor your father and your mother, right? Or honor your ancestors. You can translate it that way too. On so that ya'arichun yamecha, so your days will be ya'arichun, they will be lengthened, right? So we're told why. So mitzvah changes in nuance, whether it's same with the word chayta, sin. The anti-missionaries would have you think that chayta always means accidental sin. Well, that just exposes either a dishonest spirit in their part, spirit of deception, of mirma, or ignorance of, we're just not being very good at biblical Hebrew. So either way is not good for Tovia Singer and his ilk, these other anti-missionaries. I don't see how he could possibly be that bad at Hebrew to not understand that. That's just not true. So for example, it's a half-truth. It does mean when it's in the presence of other sin language. For example, if you have avon, intentional sin, and chayta, or sometimes it shows up as chatat, then yeah, that means accidental sin because the context shows intentional sin and accidental sin. But if you raise it up by itself and it's the only kind of sin language there, then just like mitzvah means any kind of commandment, chayta means any kind of sin, even pesha, a violation of the Ten Commandments, what's that called? The serious crimes in America. I can't remember the English word. A felony, right? Like a felony. You see? So too, sana means hate when it's alone, but it's my understanding that when it's in the context of love, right? When it's in the context of love, then it is to love less. It is to love less. It gets that nuance. Jacob have I loved, and Esau, saneti, I have hated. Right? Did God really hate him? Like really he hated it? Or it's possible, or I think it's loved less. I think that's a nice parallel we can draw. Okay, so let us continue. Genesis chapter 29, verse 32. Okay. V'tahal Leah v'teled ben v'tikra shemo Reuven ki amera ki ra'a Adonai be'oni Ata Yehavani Ishi. Sorry, I'm a little sleep deprived. Misreading a little bit. I read in my strength at first instead of in my affliction or suffering. Okay, so let's look now at here. We'll look at the codex. Tahal. Then she harad. She conceived. That's a lamed hay verb. The hay has gone. She harad. She conceived. Who conceived? Leah. Then Leah conceived. Vatailid. And she allotted. So this is a pay yod verb. The yod has disappeared. And she gave birth. She allotted a son. Vatikra. Notice it's blue because that is the affix telling us what person is doing the kara. And she called Shem, the name of him, yellow being a suffix, Reuven. Reuven. Ibn Ezra comments that our sages explain Re'u, that's a command plural. Let me show you over here. Re'u, or Re'u, we would say Re'u. Oh yeah, maybe I should, let's mark that. I think that helps the visual learners. Re'u, you all look, it's like plural, look at the difference between, so that's Bain, so here's the Bain, they're saying, as in between, my son and my father-in-law's son. He sold his birthright, but my son, not still, but will, sorry, typo there. Ugh. My son will never do this. Have resentment if he did. Ibn Ezra opines, in fact, he tried to save Yosef HaTzadik from the pit. Remember, it was Reuben who tried to save him. So definitely didn't have resentment, even though it was apparent and known that Yosef was getting the Bechor, the birthright. Pardon me, the Bechorah. All right, continuing. Key 4, Amira. She said, at Ra'a Adonai. Adonai has seen. Sorry, I didn't mean to make that gray. That should not be gray. That's not a name there. Don't know what happened. Not promising I can do the coloring for the whole Torah portion for you guys. I've color coding it, and I might have missed a few things, but enjoy it this week. I can't promise to do it every time. It takes a lot of time. For Adonai has seen. Be'oni. Be'oni. Not sure why that. My oni, my affliction, my oppression, from the verb anna, number 4, to afflict, anna, number 2, depending which lexicon. Ki, for, ata, ata, now, ye havani, ye havani, he will love me. Who will love me? Ish, my husband. Verse 33. V'tahal, then she conceived, she became pregnant. So that's another lamed hey. The hey is gone again. It's hara. She conceived again. V'tailed, and she yaladed again. Yalad, she birthed again. What did she birth? A bain, son. V'tomer, and she said, ki, it is because, or that, Shema Adonai, I heard, ki, that, Senua, hated or loved less, am Anochi, I. Vayitain. So this is the verb natan. Here it's a pei noon verb, and that noon is hiding on the inside. That's why we have that dagesh there. Natan, vayin ten became vayiten. So he has given li, to me. Keep noticing stuff I missed. Oh, well, it should be orange, though. I'm not going to do it. To me, gam, also et ze, this, or this one. Vatikra, so she called Shemo, his name, Shimon, Shimon, which is like listening or listener or something like that. Because Hashem had Shemad, his. In Midrash Bereshit Rabbah 71, paragraph, as prophetic of his tribe's fine deeds in hearkening, i.e., shema'ing, to God's commands, emphasizing obedience in the covenant. And then from my book, I got a little blurb here from my book here. This is just a screenshot. Shimon, from Shema, he heard, explanation as simple folk etymology, and tried to connect this name to classical Arabic, sim, meaning hyena, with the final in Hebrew being a diminutive meaning little hyena. It seems more plausible the Bible is correct in the etymology provided here, since in Ugaritic we have the name Shim'an, meaning magistrate, as in the idea of one who listens in judgment. And Ugaritic is a dialect of Canaan, as a dialect is much closer to Hebrew. Eastern Canaan, right? So over in modern Syria. All right. Any comments or questions? Hope the pace is good for you guys. Hope you guys enjoy all the colors for the visual learners and the sound. For those of you who learn by moving your body, I don't know, maybe do some gentle sit-ups or something. You got to take it gentle. Easy on Shabbat, though. Don't tax yourself with workouts. All right. I had a old friend many years ago who he's now a rabbi also. He's a renewal Judaism rabbi. And I remember he used to try to talk me into, like, what he'd ask me, like, hey, you think it's okay to work out on Shabbat? Because that's how I de-stress, man, blah, 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 like going to the gym, de-stress. So I was like, nope, wouldn't give it to him. But I wonder if he does now as renewal. Renewal is pretty easygoing. All right, let's continue. Verse 34. V'taha od. Then she v'tailed bain, and she birthed a son. Actually, let me make this a bit bigger for everybody. Okay. V'tomer, then she said, Ata, now, hapa'am, the time, like this time. Pa'am is like a straw, like instance of something. we get from this pa'amon, a bell. Now this is a yod, guys. Don't get confused. That is a yod. Oh, actually, I can't write on the screen. It'll change. Yi lave, but you can see it over here. Yi lave. Like we'll connect, we'll cleave, we'll hold on to. Ish my husband, like we'll be connected. Eli, unto me. Ki, for yaladti. I yaladed, I birthed. Lo, for him. Shalosha vanim. Shalosha, 3 vanim, sons. Al Cain, therefore, kara. It's interesting. It says he called here, even though it's all about Leah's reasoning. But it says he called. Or I suppose you could maybe consider. No, we would say Nikra if he was called. So yeah, it's kind of strange. He called Shemo, his name, Levi. And by the way, just a point of gratitude for our mother Leah. Almost all of the Jews in the world today, we come from Leah, right? Judah comes from her, and so does Lewi. And almost all the people who are left today from Israel, from the various tribes, are from those 2 tribes, Levi and Judah. About 8% of the people are from Levi, and the rest of us are Judah. And granted, there's something from Shimon or whoever happened to be living down in Judea during the expulsion, but for the most part, if you're Jewish, there's like 91% chance you're Judah, and that unless you know that you're Levi, and you can't be Levi and not know that you're Levi, right? So because it's kept alive, right? You can't like skip a generation with Levi or something. So, all right. Yewalehi will join himself, and the child's name is Lewi. Okay. Verse 35. Vatahad vateled bain vatomel hapam odeh et Adonai al ken kare'a shemo Yehuda od miledet. All right, let's translate verse 35. Vatahal ad, she conceived. Ud, again or still. Vatailid, and she yaladed. She pushed out a yelid. She gave birth to a bain, a son. Vatomel, then she said, this time, O day, I give thanks. Or it can also be I like declare, as in like confessing how great he is. This is, by the way, you ladies probably know when you wake up in the morning, moda'ah. You say moda'ani, right? Some say modat, but and the men say modeh, mode'ani lefanecha. Grateful am I before you, right? Or you have a todah offering, right? A thanksgiving offering. Ode, so I will give thanks, or I am giving thanks, or I am confessing like how great he is. Et Adonai. Al kain, therefore, kare'ah. See, now we have she. Kare'ah, she called Shem. Oh, his Shem, his name, Yehuda. Today we'd say Yehuda, but that used to be a TH sound. Yehuda. That's just a comment I was talking about before already. The modern word Jew comes from Judah, right? Since we are mostly Judah. So if you're ever wondering how it is that the military in Israel is so amazing, Adonai makes it it's in the promise, it's in the blessing for Judah. Right? You've got a crying out loud. That's the symbol, right? The Lion of Judah. All right. Continuing. V'ta'amod. Then she stood, led it. That's min, led it. So what's happening here, in case you're wondering, the miledet, this form from yalad, right? So it's feminine participle form, yalad. And we have min, contracted, led it. In ancient days, you'd pronounce both of those laments, miledet. And then the scribe just writes that with a dagesh. They don't like to write the same letter twice in a row. There, that glowing orange, noon became glowing orange dagesh. And you can see there's also dagesh in the Leningrad codex as well, right there. Okay, so she stood, v'talmud miledet. She stood from birthing. Means she stopped birthing, right? She stopped giving birth. Okay, Genesis chapter 30, verse 1. Rachel ki lo ילדה ליעקב, ותקנא רחל באחותה, ותאמר אל יעקב, הבה לי בנים, ואם אין אנוכי. Very sad words. Vateve. Then she ra'ad. So again, we have a lamed hey verb here. Right? Reish aleph hey. Reish aleph hey. Then she saw. Who saw? Rachel. Ki. That. Look. Not. Yalidah. She birthed. LeYaakov. For Jacob. Vatikane. Rachel. And Rachel was Kane. Jealous. Ba. Against the achot, the sister of her, against her sister. By the way, this is not the definite article here, guys. Okay, not the definite article. You see what's going on here? What happened? I'll just give a little quick thing in case you're wondering. For those of you who like to know the patterns of things, when you have a word that starts with a schwa, in this case, it's a composite schwa, the chatuf patach, and a preposition to it. Prepositions like to have a schwa, but that is not allowed. You cannot have schwas in a row at the beginning of the word. So usually that first one, it would lengthen. Usually this guy would lengthen to a chirik. Okay? But in the case of a composite schwa, it just copies the sound next to the composite schwa, next to the, some people call that a quarter vowel or a half vowel. Okay, that's why. So it's not the from the article. It's not the. It's not against the sister of her, right? You don't need the if it's already determined by her. It's not any old sister, it's her sister. So anyway, in case you're wondering what's happening, that's what's happening. So she's Kane, just like God is El Kana, right? He says, for Adonai Elohecha El Kana, he is a jealous God. So Rachel is jealous against Achotah, her sister. Vatome, so she said, El unto Yaakov. Havali. Hava. Hava. This is like, come on. Come on. Daddy, come on. It's like, come on. So, like, you probably know this from a very, maybe the most famous Jewish song, Hava, Nagila, Hava, right? The Hava, that's the Hava. Let's go, Nagila. Pardon me, not Nagila, Nagila. Hava, Nagila. And the hey at the end is an exclamation point. So, come on, let's gil, let's be happy. Like, gili ma'od. So, Hava, come on. Vanim, children. Oh, I should mention there's an Aramaic word hava, which means the same. That might be what she implies by here, because Rachel, she's not a native Hebrew speaker, so maybe she's using some form of Aramaic here. So it might be that instead of come on, either one works. Come on or give already. Give, lead to me. Vanim, sons or children. It's probably just children, right? Something. Okay, hold on, my. There we go. Where is it? Strange. Okay, there we got the I couldn't get my cursor to come back. Give to me children. The and if iron, Aleph Yod Nun, don't confuse it with the letter iron. This is iron. There are none is really what it is, right? Like we say ainly, I don't have any. So Havali, give to me vanim, children. Ve'im iron, if not, meta anochi, dead am I. This is a participle ending in the hey, like I'm dead. I'm dead already. In the Talmud, tractate Avodah Zarah, page 5, front part of the page, and if you have the new method of organizing by paragraphs, paragraph 19, we learn a blind person is considered as though he were dead, as it is written, he has made me dwell in dark places, as those that have been long dead. That's from Eicha, Lamentations 3, verse 6. A leper is considered as though he were dead. Said to Moshe when Miriam was struck with leprosy, quote, let her not, I pray, be as one dead, unquote. Bamidbar, Numbers chapter 12, verse 12. And one who has no children, I want to say Ein Ditye, mixing Russian in there, Ein Banim, is considered as though he were dead, as it is written that Rachel said to Yaakov, quote, Hava livanim, ve'im ayin meta anochi. Give me children or else I am dead. By the way, if you're blind and listening, this is not about you. You have to understand in ancient times, things today as a blind person. Many blind people are very capable. So please do not take that to heart in a negative way that we're sharing about that. It's way better to be blind, I'm sure, today than it was 3,000 years ago. Did you imagine? So, all right. Let's see. And may Mashiach come speedily and soon, the one who heals the blind, have that precious gift of sight, which you will have in the Olam Haba. You will see in Olam Haba. And you'll probably appreciate it more than anyone else. All right, let's go on. Genesis chapter 30, verse 2. You might have noticed I hand wrote in the verses there to kind of help you. Right? So there's 3. Here I have it nicer. 30, verse 2, verse 3, etc. Okay. ויחרף יעקב ברחל, ויאמר, התחת אלוהים אנוכי, מנע ממך פרי ותן. Vayicha, then got hot. And this is the verb chara. We have another lamed hey verb that lost its end. Chara. Lost that final. Remember, when the verb ends in hey, the hey goes away. And he got hot. What got hot? Off the nostril of Jacob. Then the nostril of Jacob got hot. So it means Jacob's anger flared up. Rachel, against Rachel. Vayom, then he said. So let me zoom in a bit. Hold on, let me zoom. Oh, I cannot. Okay. Ha, this is the hey. It's a question mark. Ha, Tachat Elohim. In place of God, Elohi, I, Asher Hu, Mana, has held back mimech, from you. That's min mech, became mim mech. Peri vaten, fruit of, and usually this would be beten, womb, or tummy, fruit of the tummy. Genesis 30, verse, excuse me. Hine amati vilha bo'eleha v'teled al vilkai v'imane gam anochi mi. See? Vatomer. Then she said, Hine, check it out. Look, amat I, the ama of me. Now it's interesting. The language is subtle here. We are told that Lavan had given Vilha as a shifcha to Rachel. A shifcha, not always, but generally it's got the meaning of a virgin female servant, right? Who is off limits to men, like she wouldn't be around the areas alone where a man is in the house, right? But an amma, from the root aleph mem, where we get the word ima, mother, an amma ending in a hey, it became a tav because the suffix, but ends in hey, is like servant. English translations usually won't distinguish. They'll just translate both as maidservant, right? But there's subtlety in the Hebrew here. She's a servant who is going to be an right? Going to be an imam, going to be a mother. So it's like a mommy servant kind of, right? So very interesting. It just doesn't affect translation in the Hebrew there. I thought you might like to be aware of. Vilha is her name. So the amma of me, Vilha. Bo. This is an imperative. Oh, I should have marked it as imperative. Sorry, bo. Enter eleha, unto her. Vateled. When she births, or she will birth, upon Beakai, the knees of I, from the word Beakayim, meaning, and then we put the suffix on there. The knees of me, my knees, my knees. Targum Yonatan interprets, and she said, Behold, my handmaid Bilhah, enter with her that she may bear and I may increase and be builded up from her. Okay, not sure why I added that. It's exactly like the Hebrew. I don't know, maybe I was tired. The Ibane, here's the Hebrew, and I will build up, rather be built up. It's in Bane, it's a nifal, which might not be obvious. Usually when I go to Yonatan, it's because it adds something, right? If you're studying the Torah and you want to look at the ancient Aramaic Targum translation, if you want like literal, you go to Onkelos, which is usually very literal, although sometimes he's not, right? Sometimes he gets in there with tradition, right? Like the Torah says, don't boil a kid, like a goat baby, in the mother's milk. And then Onkelos translates, don't mix meat and dairy, right? Don't mix meat and milk, right? So he'll sometimes go straight to tradition, but usually very, very strict. Yehonatan adds lots of words and usually gives you interpretation. So it's kind of funny. I went to Yehonatan and it was like literal. Should have just didn't give us anything there. Sorry about that. So Ibane means I will be built up. And then the hey, that's probably part of the verbal root. Never mind. Gam, also, Anochi, I. Mimena, from her. So I will also be built up from her. So you'll be built up having kids, and so will I, because they will count as mine. Right? Yeah, okay. Let's see. Verse 4. Oh, et bilha shivchata לאישה, ויבוא אל Yaakov. Look, there it is, Shivcha. See, it's Shivcha. She's still a Shivcha, but she's telling him, I'm making her an Amma now, right? So, okay, because he hasn't slept with her yet, she's still a Shivcha. Okay, Vatiten. Then she natand, the dagesh there shows we have a noon hiding inside. The word is natan. In ancient Hebrew, tintain, right? Tintain became titain. There's like 3 tavs in a row. Actually 4 tavs in a row. Vat titain. Vatitain. So she gave lo to him. What did she give? Et bilha. She gave bilha. Shivchat the shivcha of her. Le isha, for a wife, or for a woman, as a woman. Actually, we'll finish the sentence first. Vayavo, then he came eleha unto her, Yaakov. Then Jacob entered unto her. By the way, there's something I've heard so many times, like when I hear about this stuff, it's kind of interesting to see how uncomfortable the Goyim get with our ancestors, right? Like I've heard so many pastors when they talk about this, like, oh, poor Jacob, he got tricked, right? It's true, he did get tricked, right? And that's why he was polygamous, right? That's why he had all these wives. But they never really think through it, do they? I mean, is Rachel the boss of Jacob? Is Leah his boss? Right? So they say, look, I'm going to give you my maidservant. He knows the maidservants to be a wife for you, and you can have more kids. He's part of that decision-making process. You think if he'd said no, they would have like snuck in at night and made the maid sleep with him or something while he's asleep? Okay, so it's just interesting how people, due to discomfort with things, try to reformulate and make it all like, oh, poor Jacob, he's just like, they're all tricking him and forcing him, so. Like, imagine if Jacob showed up today and tried to like walk into a Baptist church or something with his 4 wives, and people didn't know it was Jacob from the Bible, right? Would he be allowed to stay? You think? For sure he'd get the boot, right? He'd totally get kicked out. They might even call the police. It's just funny to me, always looking at, trying to compare like the lens of modern feminist societies onto what is clearly a patriarchy. Right? The biblical culture is an absolute patriarchy. Right? There's a debater I like to listen to a lot who's, I disagree with his views on Israel and stuff, right? The Mishnah Avot says a wise person can learn from everyone, right? From anyone. So, and I like to listen to, and it's painful because he's a very famous and excellent debater, right? Wilson. But he always explains patriarchy as, it means from the father. I'm like, no, it doesn't. Pater, his father, arche, is leadership, ruler, right? Like in the book of John, we're told that Nicodemus was an archon, from that same word, a leader of the people. Yeshua says, you're an archon of the people? Right? And you don't know this? So I just cringe every time I hear. Maybe heard it 20 times from the Father. It's like, no, it's not from the Father. It's not. And he's Greek Orthodox. What the heck, man? You're a Greek Orthodox Christian. Come on. Anyway, much respect to the guy in his other areas. Just he's totally wrong on Israel. So let's see. But yeah, biblical culture was a patriarchy. And I would challenge everybody to think about like other things all throughout Scripture, things which were like, how would you even accept Jacob in your midst? Would our ancestor be allowed for dinner at your house? You met him, maybe you met him at the mall. He's a nice guy, right? And then bring your family over. And then he shows up with his 4 wives. Could you imagine, like a Filipino family, how they would react, or American family, or British family? Say a Roman Catholic family. It's hilarious. The days are coming when men will call what is good evil and what is evil good. So, by the way, I'm not suggesting that people have to live that way to be patriarchal. Of course not. But Yeshua himself confirms, pardon me, it's Rav Shaul, that the man is the head of the house, correct? All right, so nobody's forcing Jacob here. He has agency, all right? So don't just put it on Rachel and Leah for causing this scenario. He made choices too. So I shall also be built up. So this is like an emphatic. We don't need that, right? It's emphatic. Let's mark it with magenta, which we usually use for emphasis. I indeed will be built up, or I myself will be built up. Mimena, from her, like on account of her or through her. Verse 4, we already canted. Vatiten lo et Bilha, so she gave him Bilha, Shivchata, her virgin maidservant, Leisha, for a wife. Vayavo eleha Yaakov, then Jacob entered into her. Sarna, Nahum Sarna, a modern Jewish scholar, writes as concubine. So he's understanding Isha to be concubine here. The text, even though it doesn't say pilagesh, which is the word for concubine, so I'll let him make his case. The text reads literally as a wife, but in Genesis 35, verse 22, Bilhah is called a concubine, Hebrew pilagesh. Zilpah is designated wife in verse 9. In 37, verse 2, both women are termed wives, nashim. The basic difference between a concubine and a wife is that no mohar, no bride price, also called the mechir, right? No Aramaic version, no or bride price is paid for the former. Right? The interchange of terms, so it's still like a wife. When people hear concubine, you're reading about a biblical figure, like we read that Avraham had many concubines, right? I think it's kind of a sordid taste to Westerners. Concubine, no, because when we think of concubine, we think of like Genghis Khan. He invades some village. There's a lady he likes. He says, "You're mine," right? And that's it. She's part of his harem or something, right? So concubine isn't an exact, I don't feel like that's a fair mapping to pilagesh. Instead, think of it as a kind of wife, right? Concubine, you don't really, you usually think of concubine like a permanent mistress or something, right? Or quasi-permanent, right? I think many people feel that a concubine is like a prostitute who just has one John, right? Just one. That's not what it means in Hebrew, okay? She was his. She could not be with another man, right? She's a pilagesh. It's like kind of wife where Rabbi Jacob Emden, the Yavitz, who's very revered among the Ashkenazim, who said wonderful things about Yeshua, by the way, in a book he wrote on him. He was a defender of the faith against Sabbatai Sabianism, the false Messiah who even told his followers to eat pork and stuff. And in the end, he converted to Islam. The Yavitz wrote a book also called Pilagesh. And in it, he explains that the major difference between an Isha, like a full-blown Isha, the highest ranking kind of wife, and a Pilagesh, is that a Pilagesh could leave the man if she wants to. For any reason. She could say, I'm done, you're a jerk, I'm out of here, right? Why? Because he hadn't bought her. Interesting, right? He hadn't paid the mochir, right? So it's kind of interesting. Or the mochar here, as Sarna says. I'm more used to mochir, the Aramaic word. So isn't that interesting? So she could leave. So it's kind of like, and I'm just challenging sensibilities. I'm not saying anybody should live this way. All right, I'm not saying it's, that this is recommended or something. But it's kind of like in the West, a live-in girlfriend. When the girlfriend moves in with the man, right? There's an expectation she can't be with other guys, right? There's an expectation that they are exclusive, right? But if she wants to break up, she can. She doesn't have to go to court or anything like that, right? And get a divorce or anything like that. So it's kind of interesting. So it's really a lot like that. That's what a pilagesh was, like a live-in girlfriend in those days. If you remember, in the book of Judges, there's a Levite, right? He's going around with his concubine, and early on, she leaves him. She runs away from him, goes back to her father. He goes back, talks to the father, renegotiates, gets her to come back, be with him. It doesn't mean nothing was ever given to the father. It just means it's not like a full bride price, right? And then, of course, he lets the whole city of Benjamites rape her, and she dies in the morning. It's a horrible story. It starts the big civil war in Israel, where Benjamin is almost wiped out. So just think of that. When you read concubine in the Bible, don't think like prostitute or something, right? It's not what it was. It wasn't like some woman who's just like selling herself to the highest bidder or something like that. It's a kind of wife. She had less status than a full wife, but her children could inherit, right? So if she gives birth to this firstborn son, her son, even though she's a Pilagesh, is the heir. The heir. And the Torah says that a man cannot disinherit her. All right, let's see. A comment on the accuracy in the Torah. Actually, let's pause. Let's go back. Let's pause. We're at the 51-minute mark. This is probably a good time for you guys to take a break. So let's go ahead and take a 3 to 5 minute break. I will, if I have time to get all set up in time, I will put in some Hebrew literacy original music for those of you who don't want to go anywhere. And those of you who are getting something to drink or using nothing, when you hear the music end, it's time to come back. All right? See you soon.
Living in this world can be so lonesome, trying to make a man's mark. Too long I stared at a swinging empty door. I'm grateful Elohim had a solution. You'll find it too, Genesis 2:24. Therefore came the man who believed Yazovish, his father et David, and his mother wet Imo, and he will cleave a devak with his woman Ishto. They'll become united flesh. Where you live a star ahead.
I'm so glad that I found someone to keep me level on the ground. Oh, Elohim knew just what I'd be going through.
Therefore came the man believe Yazovish, his father et David, and his mother wet Imo, and he will cleave the devak with his woman, be sure they'll become united flesh. There you live a star echad. Like night and day, we become one. Echad, we live and we pray, though it ain't easy. Often it's love. Therefore, how can a man will leave Yazovish, his father et David, and his mother et Imo, and he will cleave where Devak with his woman Ishto. They'll become united flesh. There you never start hard. Sing it together, our pain. Yazovish et David et Imo, Devak Ishto. There you never start hard. Sing it together, our pain. Yazovish et David et Imo, Devak Ishto. There you never start hard.
Hey, welcome back. Here we are, continuing with our study in the ancient Triennial Torah portion. So I want to read to you another comment from Sarna. This is referring back to the she shall bear my knees. And this is something I think that demonstrates accuracy in the Torah as it relates to practices of peoples in the ancient Near East and the way that people thought, right? That she may bear on my knees. The key to this phrase lies in a symbolic gesture, widely attested in Near Eastern sources. especially Hittite, as well as in the cultures of ancient Greece and Rome. The placing or reception of a child on or by the knees of another signifies legitimation, whether in acknowledgement of the physical parenthood or by adoption. This practice is again referred to in the Bible in Genesis 48, verse 12, and 50, verse 23, and in Job chapter 3, verse 12. Its origin is in the idea of the knee as the seat of generative power. Akkadian, birku, knee, is in fact used as a euphemism for the sexual parts. An impotent man is shah, like isha, shah, la ishu birki, literally one who has no knees. Sennacherib speaks of his oldest son as the, quote, offspring of my knees, unquote. In the present context, because Bilhah is to act as a surrogate mother for Rachel, her offspring have to be accepted and legitimated. The appropriate symbolic gesture on Rachel's part is thus called for. You guys understood? So isn't it neat when we find that other ancient Near Eastern cultures kind of explain some of the weird things that people in the Bible are saying back then, right? They weren't carrying around Bibles and such, right? So, all right. Continuing on with Genesis, chapter 30, verse 5. Sorry, I have a dehumidifier telling me it's full. I don't know if you hear the beep or not, but my apologies. Vata, vataha. Sorry, I'm trying to do the tones and sing. That doesn't work. Vataha, bilha, vatelid leYaakov, bein. Vataha, bilha. Then Bilha became Hara. She became pregnant. Again, Lamed Hey verb. The hay disappeared, didn't it? In it. Then Bilha became Hara. She conceived. Vatailid. And she birthed Le for Yaakov, for Jacob, a Bain, a son. Genesis chapter 30, verse 6. Vatomer Rachel Danani Elohim Vegam Shema Bekoli Waitem li Bein Alkein Karea Shemo Dan. Okay. Vatomer Rachel. Then Rachel, she said, Danani Elohim. God gave to me. Or some say judged me. Could be either way. Vegam, and also, or indeed, Shema Bekol I. He hearkened to me, literally heard in the voice of me. Vayittain, and he natand. Got a little noon, ancient Hebrew, Vayintain, became Vayittain. Li, to me, a Bain, a son. Alkain, therefore, Kare'ah, she called Shemo, his shame, his name, Dan, Dan, a gift. Okay. Genesis chapter 30, verse 7. V'tahal ha'od v'teled bilha shivchat Rachel bein shnei leYaakov. Okay, verse 7. V'tahal, then she, Harad, she oops, wrong color, sorry. She conceived Od, again. Vatelid, and she yaladed, she birthed. Who birthed? Bilhah, and Bilhah birthed. Who is, oh, sorry, it's a longer title than that. Vatelid, Bilhah, Shivchat Rachel. And Bilhah, the female maidservant, it's kind of strange it's saying female maidservant, but fine, we'll just say the servant of Rachel birthed. Remember, I said it's not always 100%. Again, Lord, a Bain, a son. Jacob, in Hebrew, Yaakov, to Jacob, is placed in an emphatic position in the word order. It has not appeared in the account of the birth of the previous sons, but is included here because the paternity of a child born to a maidservant may be uncertain. Interesting. So he's saying that's why we have the Yaakov coming up right here. She bore a son, birthed a son, Sheni, a second one. Here's our noun. Here's our adjective. What kind of a vein? A Sheni, a second one. Le Yaakov, to Jacob. Genesis 30, verse 8. Vatomer Achel Naftule Elohim Niftahati Im Achoti Gam Yacholti Vatika Shemo Naftali. Okay. Vatomer, then she said, who said? Rachel. Naftule Elohim. I should have made that, marked that as construct chain. Not exactly the right color, but I don't have access to that aqua one anymore while we're recording alive. Struggles of God, godly struggles, or by means of godly struggles. Naftalti, I struggled. Im, with achoti, my sister. Gam yacholti, even, or indeed, I yachal, one, like I was able. Vatikra, so she called Shemo, his name, Naphtali, or Naphtali, like struggles. All right. Oh, I forgot I had a note on Danani. Danani means he gave me, hence the name Dan. Oh, I told you anyway, so it's fine. Another note on Naphtali. Oh, actually on Shivchat Rachel. Yeah. Okay. The Ha'amek Davar points out, notice how differently these Shivchot who were elevated to the level Amot behaved compared to Hagar. In other words, these ones were likely so grateful to have been given to a man like Yaakov Avinu, such a godly man who's even very strong, right? And from my book, Naphtali echoes Naphtali Elohim, contests of God, and Naphtali, I have become entangled, i.e., in a struggle or a contest. Genesis chapter 30, verse 9. Vatere Leah ki ameda miledet vatikach et zilpa shifchata vatitein otach leYaakov leisha. Okay. Vatere Leah. Then Leah, notice, she ra'ah. Again, we have Lamed Hey verb. The hay has gone away. Then she noticed, Leah noticed, ki, that, ameda, that she stood, literally, mil ledet, that's min ledet, from birthing. So she stopped giving birth. Vatikach, so she lakach, and if you look, I've got a little note here for you. There's a lamed hiding inside of the kuf. She tilkach became tikach. She took et zilpa. Shivchat the handmaiden of her. Vatittain, and she natan. Should change color. She natan. Oh, it's terrible. I usually write my nudes with the cursive Hebrew style. That's why they always look so ugly when I do them in printed, in case you're wondering. She tintain, she gave. So like with modern Hebrew script, just like this. It's so easy to do a noon. Then she gave otah, her, le, to Yaakov, to Jacob, le isha, for a wife. Nachmanides comments, perhaps since Abraham and Yitzchak did not have many sons, Yaakov wanted many wives to make sure his offspring could take possession of the land, for they were to return already in the 4th generation. Leah gave him her maid to make sure he did not take an outsider as a wife. Verse 10. Vateled Zilpah Shivchat Leah leYaakov bein. Vateled Zilpah. So Zilpah birthed, she yaladed. Pay yod verb, the yod went away. She birthed. Oh, again, it's a long title. Zilpah da Shivchat Leah. Zilpah, the handmaid of Leah. LeYaakov, to Jacob, a bain, son. Verse 11. Genesis 30, verse 11. Vatome Leah Bagad. This is how it's written. This is how it's read. Bagad. Vatikra et shemo God. Okay. Vatome Leah. Then Leah Amad, she said, Ba God. And you see, this is how it's written, but the kere, the red form, is Ba God. God is like when something good happens, good fortune. From Meyer Graham, Buthwein, text 19F, for Qumran, DG Day, and Lose Texte, writes, Ba God, though the Peshitta interpretation makes more sense, yielding Ba God, fortune has come. And that's how we are reading here too, Ba God. So she said, Ba God, fortune has arrived. Vatikra, so she called Et Shemo, his name, God, fortune. Verse 12. Vateled Zilpah Shivchat Leah Ben Sheni leYaakov. Vateled Zilpah Shivchat Leah. So then she birthed. To birth, Zilpah Shivchat Leah. Zilpah, the servant of Leah, birthed a bain, a son. What kind of son? Sheni, a second one. To Yaakov, to Jacob. Verse 13. Vatome Leah be'oshri ki shereuni banot vatikra et shemo Asher. All right, let's read verse 13 from the codex. Vatome Leah. Then, that's the vav. Then Leah Tome, she said, be'oshri. So with happiness, so this is the word that the Mashiach uses when he gives whole beatitudes, right? Like, blessed are those. It's not like blessed meaning riches. It's blessed like the kind of person who has peace in their life, right? They're happy. They've got That's what Osher is, right, in general. Although we do have, it's also related to, I won't get into it, I don't want to confuse you. We'll leave it like that. So, be'oshri, in my joy, in my having contentment. Ki, for isheruni banot, for daughters have made me glad. Vatikra, so she called et shemo, his name, Asher, like happiness, Asher. Not to be confused with Osher, which actually is riches. Any comments or questions before we move on? I'm just going to take a quick drink. Genesis chapter 30, verse 14. Let me zoom in a bit so it's easier for you to see if you're on a smaller device. Vayelech Reuven bimei k'tzir chitim vayimtza dudayim basadeh vayaveh otam elea imo vatomer achel elea tenina lihi midudae benich. Okay. Vayelech. So this is a case where we have a word that begins with a hey and the hey went away. The verb is halach. Right? Halach. Vayelech Reuven. So Reuben halach. He went into the Yamei Ketzir Chitim, the days of the harvesting of wheat. A little strange to me that he went into those days. Not sure why it says it that way. If you have any ideas, let me know. I mean, I understand it probably means it was that season, but it's interesting why Reuben went into it, why he walked there. He went into days of Ketzir Chitim. Vayimtza, and he found Dudaim, mandrakes. And it's interesting, this is a dual ending. So it's like two mandrakes. He found two mandrakes. Or perhaps it only exists in the dual. Dudaim. What are Dudaim? Well, I said mandrakes already. There are some other opinions. Rashbam thought these were figs. Ibn Ezra points out that they have the same name in Arabic and have a beautiful fragrance. Both reference Shir Hashirim 7, verse 14 to make their points. Although Ibn Ezra, I didn't put it in the note, but he also says that they're shaped kind of like a human or something. Like, looks like they've got four appendages and such. So, but he admits that he doesn't understand how it would help with fertility. And from my book here, I reference Shir Hashirim 6:3, Dudayim, so you can at least understand why there was some association. Sounds like Dod, like sweetheart, like Dodi, my sweetheart. The famous line from Song of Songs 6:3 is, Ani ledodi, vedodi, oli. I am belonging to my sweetie, and my sweetie belongs to me. So you see where Dudayim, it sounds a lot like that, right? So there must have been some ancient understanding, maybe as an aphrodisiac or something, who knows? If you know, let us know. Leave a comment, I would like to know. Ba sadeh, in the sadeh, in the field. Vayave, And he caused to bring, this is a he-fill, which he brought. He-fill, it's just instead of the yod, we got the long sereh here. In case you're wondering, where are the markers of the he-fill? And he caused to come, because it's he-fill, caused, he brought, otam, them, right? Definite direct object marker with the suffix them. El, unto, Leah, im, oh. Leah, the mother, the mother of him. I got my tones mixed up there. Vatomer Rachel Leah. Oh, we already can't do that, didn't we? I'm sorry. Vatomer Rachel. Then Rachel said, El Leah, unto Leah, Tenina, give, please, lead to me. Mid. So that mid is actually from Dudae Vanech. Dudae, it's dan, Dudae Vanech. Your son's mandrakes. Give me some of your son's mandrakes. Teni is a feminine singular imperative. There, Teni. Genesis chapter 30, verse 15. Vatomer la, sorry. Let's do it again. Vatomer la chamrat kachtech et ishi velakachat gam et udae beni vatomer Rachel לכן ישכב ירמח הלילה תחת דודאי בנך. ותאמר לה. Then she said to her, Hame'at. So I should have marked this. We have another example of the hey interrogative here. I don't have the proper colors I want. Forgive me for using magenta. This is not emphasis. It's not emphatic. I wanted to use purple, but I don't have access to it right now. It's a hey interrogative. It's a question. Just the pointing is a bit different. Is it me'at, a little? Like, is it a small thing? Kach teich. This is from lakach. The lamed is gone, but the verb is lakach. Lakach. Many of you know this, to take. It's an infinitive construct form of it. Lakachat is the taking of. Eich, right, that you took. Is it a small thing that you took, or the taking of by you? Et, definite direct object marker. Ish-i, the man of me. Here it is. Here it comes out. My man. It's as if she took my man. Sforno comments, isn't it enough that you took? You should not have agreed to become my co-wife in the first place, since the Torah disapproves of marrying sisters. We do have a mitzvah in the Torah that says a man shall not take a sister to be a wife in addition to her existing sister, right? So if he married one lady and he's looking for a second wife, he can't marry the sister to make them, the idea is that it'll make them jealous of one another, fight against one another. And sisters, they should love each other and have a strong bond. And if it seems like somehow wrong, right, to be marrying sisters. To be fair, though, the sages go back and forth on this. Sometimes they'll say they had the Torah, right? And sometimes they'll say, well, Torah hadn't been given yet, right? So I think we can cut Yaakov a little bit of slack in this case because that mitzvah had not been given yet, really. Okay. Velakachat, and taking. So this is an infinitive absolute. It is like you don't have to say who's doing it. So you will take. Gam also. Et dodaye beni. Wow, that that really got crammed in there, didn't it? Dudaye, sorry. I was saying beloved ones. Dudaye, mandrakes of beni, of my son. Should have colorized this. And you will take lakachat. Vatomer, then she said, who said Rachel? Lachain, alas, Yishkav Imach, he will lay down Imach with you. That's kind of interesting. She's the boss of Jacob. Sorry for that blue line, unintended. Verse, continuing, we're not done. Halayla, tonight. Halayla, the night. Da, tachat, da, dudaye, venech. In place of, like, in exchange for the mandrakes of your son. Verse 16. Vayavo Yaakov min hasadeh ba'erev v'teitze leah likato v'tomer elai tavo ki sacho sechaticha v'dudaye beni v'yishkav ima balayla hu. That was a long verse, wasn't it? Okay, Genesis 30, verse 16. Vayavo Yaakov. Then Jacob came min hasadeh, from the field. Min hasadeh. Ve'erev, in the, pardon me, ba erev, in the evening. B in the erev, in the evening. V'teitze Leah. And Leah yatzad. This is another pei yod verb. The yod has disappeared. Oops, that's supposed to be white. She went out. Vate, and she, yatzad, she went out. Leah went out. Likat, to meet him. Vatomer, then she said, Elai, tavo, unto me you will enter. Ki, for, sacho secharticha. Here we have infinitive absolute, which means it's just strengthening it, like indeed, definitely, secharti, I have paid wages of you. She paid his wages, bossy. Be, with, dudaye, beni, the mandrakes of my son. Vayishkav ima, so he laid down with her. Ba Lila, in the night. Who? He. And this, I want to point, this is strange, the grammar is wrong. We would have expected ha, who. Ha, who. So, some of you like little hidden treasures. There might be something there. For those who like to dig and do gematria and all that stuff. Sorry, I'm writing on a vertical screen. It's kind of hard. Balailahu is how we should say that. But it's just balailahu. So kind of interesting. The hay is gone. If you say balailahu, it's kind of weird. It means like that is in the night. That's what that would mean. You understand? But it could also just be direct quote of how she's speaking, right? She's, again, not a native Hebrew speaker. Probably some flavor of Aramaic or something. Well, because of the region lived in. So I guess she might have done kind of a cross, a mix of Aramaic and Hebrew, right? So just interesting anyway. Okay, verse 17. Vayishma Elohim Eleah v'taha v'tele Yaakov ben chamishi. Okay, Vayishma. Elohim. And God heard, or he listened, El, unto Leah. Vatahal, so that again is a lamed hey verb. And she harad, she conceived, became pregnant. Okay, we'll do those comments when we're done. Vatailid, and she birthed, again, missing the yod, as expected. And she allotted Yaakov to Jacob, Bain, a son. What kind of son? Chamishi, a fifth son. Now come back up here to in the evening, Leah went out. Kimchi comments, again, this whole story is to demonstrate that the matriarchs all wanted to bear Jacob's children, since he was such a tzaddik, he's so righteous. It was not about sex. Okay, and then in Balayla, who? That night, with God's help, Yisachar was born. And you can find this in the Talmud Tractate Nida 31a, in Midrash Bereshit Rabbah 99 per Rashi. She tahad, she conceived. In the Basichta de Rav Kahana, on the Akara 20, section 1, it frames God's hearkening to Leah as a remembrance of the afflicted. Right? Remember before she says, Be'ani, in my affliction. Inverting barrenness through persistent merit post-rivalry. And God is also rewarding both of his wives for being so selfless that they even gave him more wives. Right? So it's kind of incredible. Maybe having some kind of prophetic understanding that there were supposed to be so many sons to found Israel. Genesis chapter 30, verse 18. Actually, I'm going to take a quick drink. Why don't you go ahead and look at that? All right. Vatomer Leah Natan Elohim Secharihi Asher Natati Shivchati Leishi. Sorry if that's too low. Vatikra Shemo Yisachar. Vatomer Leah. Then Leah said, Natan Elohim Sechari. God has given my sachar, my wage. And it sounds like Yisoshka. He has given a wage, right? Sounds similar. Asher, whom, or which, or interesting. In context, it seems like this should be maybe like because, not or when perhaps. Natati, I gave shivchat my female servant, leishi, to my husband. Vatikra, so she called Shemo, his name, Yisashchar or Yisaschar. We don't have the dot on the scene, so we're not exactly 100% sure. Okay. Genesis 30, verse 19. Vataha od Leah, vatelid ben shishi leYaakov. Vatahal, then she harad, conceived. Od, again, Leah. Then Leah tahad od, she conceived again. Vatelid, and she yalated, she birthed Bain, a son. What kind of son? Shishi. Pardon, not Shishi, there's no tone there. Shishi. It's not my shesh. That's like my Egyptian London instead of Shishi, which is sixth. A sixth son, Yaakov, to Jacob. Verse 20. Vatomer Leah. Then she said, then Leah said, Zavadani Elohim. Now, Zavad is a very rare word. Zavad only occurs in the Bible one time. Just one time. And it's also kind of like gifting, right? To endow, or to gift. In Old Southern Arabic, Zavada is to bestow upon, right? Or a zebed, zibd is a gift. So you get the idea. It's something along these lines. So Zavadani Elohim, God has endowed me. Oti, me. So it's like twice in there. Zavid, with an endowment. Tov, a good one. Hapa'am, this time. Yizbelani. Oh, and I have some comments I haven't shared. Sorry. We'll go back to the red one in a moment. On Zavid, Ibn Ezra points out that not only is this word only occurring one time in the entire Bible, it seemingly is unrelated to other words, right? So you can't just get at the meaning just by looking Hebrew to Hebrew. On Yissaskar, Rashbam points out that the double sheen in his name is representative of double reward, one for the mandrakes and one for his mother's kind act of giving her maid to Yaakov for another wife. Yizbelani. So Zaval is also a bit strange. Zaval, to acknowledge, but also to live with. That's according to Halot. The Dictionary of Classical Hebrew, however, interprets honor or exalt. But I think they're just going along with the more traditional translations here. Live with makes sense to me in context of the constant competition between the sisters for their man's affection. Okay. Yizbelani. Ish-i, my man, will live with me, right? So that makes sense, right? But it could also be honor me, will honor me, or acknowledge, at least acknowledge. Again, the traditional reason why there's problems between Leah and Yaakov is he was angry, maybe he might have been angry with her for tricking him all night, that first wedding night, not saying, hey, by the way, I'm Leah, letting him think it was Rachel, her sister. Okay. My pointer isn't returning. Okay, I will just draw on the screen to show where we are, all right? So I'm having some pointer troubles. Verse 21. Ve'acha yalada bat v'tikra et shama Dina. Okay, let's get rid of that. Well, maybe I'll just remove my notes. That might fix it. Let's see. Okay. Ve'acha, and after Yalida, she birthed a bat, a daughter. Vatikra, and she called et Shema, her name, Dina. Dina. Okay, any comments or questions? And look, well, there's something special on this page. That is where next week's ancient Triennial Torah portion begins, with Genesis chapter 30, verse 22. So we have completed the Parsha. Yay, you did it. Hopefully it wasn't too painful. Hopefully you're growing and enjoying it. So let's just go to our summary. What was our lekach for today? Well, there's a lot of stuff. You really could grab onto a lot of things. I kind of boiled it down to hopefully what might not have been the takeaway that you've heard before. Our mothers, Leah and Rachel, were greatly blessed with children. Why? Due to their selflessness in giving their handmaidens to their husband, whom he accepted. That's not something that you get very much, and I did mention it a little bit, but I don't think this is preach, for example, I don't know, we have a lot of Christian listeners and you're all welcome and I'm glad to have you here. But I'd be interested to know, did your pastor ever opine that the reason they were blessed was because they gave their man more wives? I kind of doubt that's the normal takeaway. But maybe don't focus on that. Focus on the fact that they were selfless, right? They wanted children. And of course, in the ancient world, this was a big motivator. Today, we've kind of gotten away from that. So many couples only have 1 or 2 kids and think that that's okay, right? But really, the mitzvah to piru means you must have at a minimum 1 of each sex, right? So if you have 10 sons and no daughters, you haven't been fruitful and multiplied yet. Right? You need to have at least 1 of each sex. At least that's the traditional take on it in Yiddishkeit. Today, we are left mostly with Judah and Levi only. Imagine the joy there could be if Hashem restores the other tribes someday. Wouldn't that be amazing? But kind of the corollary with this is Leah seemed to be in a bad situation, right? Either her man truly didn't love her, which is possible. He could have just really been mad at her for tricking him, right, into becoming a wife, right? He didn't choose that one. You could say that wives number 3 and 4 he chose, right? Because his wives offered them as wives, or pilgashim, if you will, like so-called concubines. But he could have rejected that. So he agreed, okay, fine, right? Yeah, I'll have them as wives too. But Leah was not chosen by him. But we see how even in such suffering, in the midst of such suffering, such a horrible situation, to feel unloved or loved less by her man, God brought forth great things through her. Virtually every Jew today you see is here because of Leah, right? I mean, of course, there are those who've joined as well, right? But still adopted into that. So it's her offspring who are the ones in charge in Israel today. Not Rachel's. Just saying. Finally, I think we have woven all throughout this Torah portion the concept, or at least it's kind of hidden, it's always there, the importance of Shalom Bayit. I wrote Shalom Bayit so people understand what it is, but it's actually Shalom. It's Shalom Bayit, right? Peace of house, right? Peace in the home. Shalom in the home. How important it is for husbands and wives to get along, to have that peace, how important for the children's sake, that they not be bickering and fighting. How important it is for women to respect their husband, right? To show respect. For men, it is so important to get that respect, right? To have obedience. The Torah teaches a patriarchy. I know I'm probably going to lose viewers from this, that's fine, but that's the way it is. It is a patriarchy. But we have additional revelation, at least understanding given to us in the apostolic writing, that men are not supposed to be tyrants in the home either, right? They're supposed to demonstrate a hava to their wives as the master loves the kehillah. So I really wish there to be a blessing on all of you who are married, that you would have shalom in your home. And if your partner's unreasonable and they just don't want to fix things and you're kind of stuck in a rut, then the one who's listening to this shi'ur, I encourage you, change yourself. Change yourself. For 40 days, challenge yourself to be the perfect spouse, as perfect as you can. If you're a woman, submit perfectly to your man. Submit, not with grumbling, but joyfully submit. Even if it means the man's going to make some mistakes, right? If you're the man, show patience and love to your wife. Speak to her with a good tone, right? Tone can be so important. Women will think you're yelling at them if you have the wrong tone, even if you're whispering. But focus on it. Work on yourself for 40 days and see if there's some improvement. And don't announce it to your spouse. Don't say, I'm going to work on myself for 40 days because you're such a piece of junk and you never work and you're so lazy. No, don't do that. Just focus on that improvement and give it to Hashem as an offering. and ask for that shalom bayit. I think that eventually Yaakov did love Leah. I think he loved her all along. I really think it was loved less, right? I don't really think our ancestors at that point in time, the patriarchs rather, I should say, that they had it in them, this kind of in it just for the sex, like the current generation oftentimes seems to be. But that spiritual bond and connection. And of course, she had his children, Leah had his children. Of course, he had to esteem her in some way. And maybe it really was Hashem's doing to give her children first before the one who was loved most. I feel like saying this tefillah today, so let's say it. מי שברך אבותינו אברהם, יצחק ויעקב, הוא יברך את חיילי צבא הגנה לישראל, העומדים על משמר ארצנו וערי אלוהינו, מגבול הלבנון ועד מדבר מצרים, ומן הים הגדול עד לבוא הערבה, ביבשה, באוויר ובים. ייתן אדוני את אויבינו הקמים עלינו, ניגפים לפניהם. הקדוש ברוך הוא ישמור ויציל את חיילינו מכל צרה וצוקה ומכל נגע ומחלה. וישלח ברכה והצלחה בכל מעשה ידיהם, ויהי רצון מלפניך שתשמרם בחייהם ותעזרם במלחמתם, ותבוא עליהם ברכת טוב לעד לעדי עד. Amen. I'll just put the English up if you want to see it. You can take a screenshot. I'm not going to pray at this time. Or you can pause the video if you like. And now for our Malchi Tzedek blessing, the so-called Birkat HaKohanim. Ein lanu Kohen מאהרון עכשיו פה. אין לנו לוי, אעשה את הברכה הזאת אחרי סדר מלכי צדק, כי יש לנו כהן בשמיים ממעל, ישוע שמו. יברכך אדוני וישמרך, יאר אדוני פניו אליך ויחונקה. יישא אדוני פניו אליך, וישם לך shalom. Shavuot Tov. Have a great rest of your Shabbat and a wonderful week up ahead. Please come study with us Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. We have various classes over on Patreon. And usually I have preview classes, also previews on YouTube, like the first half or third of the lesson. If you don't want to be a patron, that's fine, but please study. Lashon HaKodesh is the best way to insulate yourself from heresies, learning the holy tongue, and not being tricked by deceitful, lying anti-missionaries. I hope you all will have a great and excellent rest of your day, and I will look forward to hearing from any and all of you. Rega. Shalom, shalom.